All right. Just real quick, wanted to show everybody what's going on here with these axles. So this outer joint, I think, is binding up. When you spin it, there's one really rough spot and it does a big click, which is, you know, if you can hear it if you can hear a CV joint is bad when it's not under load, then it's bad. But I won't have a 100% definitive answer until I pull the axle out. I'm gonna cut that boot open and then we'll see pretty quick if it has any grease in it or if it's been under lubricated for a long time and I just didn't know or what. But either way, it's got 238,000 miles on it, so can't be too upset with that performance out of a OEM axle. So kind of just under here brainstorming, trying to figure out exactly where it is I want to start. I don't know if I can just pop the inner joint out of the diff and then the stub length of the axle that's actually in the diff will be short enough that I can pivot it out, or if I should loosen the diff mounts and try and push it side to side, or if it's going to be a process where I have to take these massive trailing arms or make them, you know, loosen them up, loosen the bolts up, or take the bolts out and loosen the arm up. I would like to avoid that if I can. The bearing is pressed in, I believe, so I think we're cooked there. But the axle is actually mobile inside of the hub. Like, it's loose, which is, that's mind-blowing. Passenger side axle out. Ended up being a little bit more involved than I thought. So in my like BMW experience and limited Mercedes experience, I would say 9 times out of 10, the rear axle shafts have circlips so that you hit them with the hammer and the axles pop out of the differentials. This is not that case. It's almost like a Chrysler 8 3/4, like small Jeep axles or circlip axles. So you actually have to pull the diff cover off, which is also the differential mount. And then once you get that cover off, you can see the circlip. And I'll show you guys when it's going back in. But still need to do the other side actually. So when I pull the driver's side, I'll show the circlip. But it's like you know, most American truck axles with circlips. It's a similar concept. It looks like one, except it's got it's just got like a little tab on it so that you can put a 90-degree pick in there or whatever. I actually used a pair of slip joint needle noses and just squeezed the hell out of it. You could do with some needle nose vice grips probably. But what I wanted to talk about was so when I decided to put this car up, it was clicking like crazy. And I've had problems with the e-brake on the right side fell apart, and it was making a similar noise actually to a CV axle. So when I took the e-brake apart, and I was like, well, it can't be the e-brake anymore because there's no shoes. Like I gutted the passenger side e-brake, waiting for parts to come in, and I kept driving it. And the CV axle, or the CV joint in this right rear axle, is pretty walloped. So I don't know if you can hear this. I'm sure you can see it, but it is bindy. Thing is beat. So I'm gonna cut these boots off, and then I'll show you guys what's inside. Mercedes axles, I went and did some actual research on how to service these CV joints. And it's a little bit more involved than I thought. And that's fine, but I didn't know exactly what I was getting into, so I had to park it the other night, and then here I am. It's Monday night after work, and now it's finally time to cut these cups open. So the way these CV joints actually work is most joints you'll find are just the boot connects straight to the physical joint. The joint is inside of this metal cup. This is called a cup style CV axle. And this ridge here, you actually cut, or you could potentially fold it back. But as far as I can tell from some internet research, these need cut. And so if I knew that these CV joints were okay, I could just cut one of these cups, pull the CV joint, the cup, the boot all off, and then just replace the boot on this side by sliding it all the way down the shaft. I think I'm gonna end up cutting both of these cups off just because I'm not at all convinced that these axles are gonna be savable. The other thing I did see online is that Mercedes did actually fill these inner joints closest to the diff with oil instead of grease, which is kind of neat. I was definitely surprised by that when it hit me in the face and when I pulled the boot off, but you know, what do I know about German engineering? I've only worked on BMWs, so. The inner joint apart already. The ball bearings actually look deceivingly good. There is a little bit of wear. So we'll see. I'm going to pull this one off. We'll make a judgment call. But these are called spider joints, which is just like a fancy Nancy CV joint. But I mean, if you look at them, they are ridiculously robust. But apparently what you need to look out for is you can see, I'll show, there's like a shiny spot up towards the top here where my index is. There's one little wear spot. And there's one of those in every groove because, you know, if you think about it, the car, for the most part, sits at a set ride height, and then the joint really only spins with the ball bearings in one spot in this slot. So the idea is when the suspension goes up and down, the axle shaft can move, the whole axle can change length to move with the geometry of the suspension. And the way that that actually functions is these grooves and these ball bearings that ride inside of them. So that's how you keep, you know, your drive moving forward and your suspension oscillating at the same time as these ball bearings actually move inside of these grooves. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm feeling pretty good about the wear on this inner joint. It's got a little groove in it here, but I'm gonna take these inner joints off, and actually I'll probably put this inner joint on the driver's side axle instead of reinstalling it on the passenger side axle, because then the ball moving in the groove will actually be spinning in a different direction than where the wear is present on this inner joint. Wow, I successfully dropped almost every single ball. All right. All right, so I just wanted to show real quick the wear pattern on this outer joint here. So if you look, that real like mirror finish polished piece here, right at the tip of my finger, that's a little indent where the ball bearing's been wearing for 230,000 miles. And on the other side, there's no indent. So my plan is to take this take this outer spider joint, and I'm gonna press it, I'm gonna use this outer joint on the other axle shaft to reverse the wear. So this pocket right here that's all worn in should be in the opposite direction of the load. So, you know, maybe in reverse this axle joint will click, but I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed that if I flip this axle around and I fill them with grease right and I clean them up nice, that these shouldn't give me any problems. All right, so I figured out how the U-joints are wearing, and I know what I want to do there by flipping them around. Next step is just kind of clean them up, and then tomorrow I'm gonna bring these axle shafts to work. These are press-on inner joints. So I think I'm gonna actually need, I mean, you might be able to do it with a hydraulic or with an air hammer or maybe a regular hammer too, but I don't really want to beat on them bad. I don't want to damage the splines or anything. So tomorrow I'm gonna bring those in, and I'll film running the hydraulic press and popping these joints off. I'll clean them, clean the shafts up nice, and then press everything back together on the joints on the right shafts the way that I want to do it. So for now, I'm gonna run these through the ultrasonic cleaner, the joint and all the bearings. And then tomorrow, I'll actually, I'll take these inner halves of the joints off the shaft, and then we'll go from there.